There is an awful lot for the committee to discuss today, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to question and answers.
Thank you for convening today's hearing. I'm grateful for this opportunity to discuss President Trump's 2027 budget, which builds on this administration's progress in unleashing a new era of economic expansion.
Could you pull the microphone a little bit closer?
Sure. I last appeared before this committee just a few weeks before the Senate passed the Working Families tax cuts. So on the heels of the most successful filing season in IRS history, I'd be remiss if I did not begin by thanking the committee for helping to deliver this once-in-a-generation bill to the President's desk.
Senator Ron Wyden, ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, the panel with jurisdiction over the entire tax code, just tried to get one straight answer out of Scott Baucus, got a masterclass in dodging instead. The situation could not be more brazen. Donald Trump sued his own government for $10 billion over a tax return leak that happened on his watch. A judge looked ready to toss it, so Trump settled and walked away with something. No other American has immunity from IRS audits for himself, his family, and his businesses. Wyden pressed for a simple yes or no on whether that immunity still stands. Bessent hid behind ongoing litigation. Wyden pressed on who cancelled the audits and on the IRS memo that reportedly warned the lawsuit was baseless. The same wall every time. Not one fact surrendered. Watch this. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video and hit that subscribe button if you want to join the community that we're building on this channel. It goes a long way, really means a lot to me.
Donald Trump sued his own administration for $10 billion over a tax return leak that happened on his watch. A judge appeared ready to toss the lawsuit, so Trump rushed a settlement for personal gain. The acting attorney general went out yesterday and said they're not moving forward with the $1.8 billion insurrection slush fund. The other part of this settlement apparently remains in place, and that is the part that presents the biggest direct benefit to Trump. Todd Blanche let Trump off the hook for potentially $100 million in back taxes by canceling what's reported to be a long-running dispute with the IRS. Then he let the entire Trump family and the Trump organization off the hook for any tax crimes they may have committed in the past. As of right now, everybody in America is subject to audit except the Trump family. Unfortunately, the Senate Republican leader was quoted this morning saying that this is business as usual, that it's a standard settlement. The reality is that's totally wrong. Two former IRS commissioners have now confirmed that this is completely without precedent. It's the ultimate case of an ultra-wealthy individual living under one set of rules while everybody else lives under another, a crooked double standard that benefits Trump and family. I take it as an admission of his own guilt when it comes to tax cheating. Trump and his family have been stuffing every dollar they can grab into their own pockets. If everything was on the level, it seems to me he wouldn't need Todd Blanche to get the IRS off his back. Secretary Bessent owes the committee an explanation of what the Treasury knows about the dirty settlement. That's because his department was involved from beginning to end. Treasury was a defendant and a negotiator in the lawsuit. It was informed by IRS attorneys that Trump had no real case. And it sure looks to me like Treasury's top lawyer quit his job in objection to the settlement. This is an abuse of the IRS that goes way beyond anything that I have any familiarity with. My view is this committee needs to investigate this on a bipartisan basis. Blanche allegedly dropped the insurrection fund, doesn't change that. So what's particularly shocking about a corrupt deal like this is it comes when so many American families are fearful about the economy. I was home last week having 4 town hall meetings in parts of my state that are bright red. And what they talked to me about was the pain of inflation going up, wage growth going down, the job market flattening. The Trump administration doesn't seem to care. Last week, Secretary Bessent was asked during an interview about price increases caused by the Iran war. He said, I quote, "It was less than $200 in extra gasoline costs. All the Democrats want to talk about is beef and gasoline." Now, to me, you might think that a political leader couldn't get any more dismissive of people's economic concerns. But then Donald Trump topped it himself. When asked if Americans' financial situations made him think about ending the war that he started, he said, and I quote, "Not even a little bit." He continued, "I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody." Mr. Chairman and colleagues, I've never heard a President of the United States talk in such a dismissive way about the hurt of the American people. And then he rambled through his ever-changing goals in the quagmire of a war. No sympathy for struggling families at all from the president. Americans are increasingly spending down their savings and going into debt to get by. The people running the country are ratcheting up the cost of living with wars, tariffs, and cuts to health care and basic services. It's cold comfort to somebody who had to max out their tax credit card to feed their kids that Trump might get his face on a $250 bill. But that's the kind of priority that apparently the Treasury Department is focusing on these days. Even outside of economic matters, the Treasury Secretary is simply out of step with the American people. There's no better example than the fact that there's been a cover-up of the massive file of Epstein's financial records for a year and a half. This is part of the effort I've made. It's the only one to follow the money in the Epstein situation, and yet there's been a denial of access to committee investigators and lying in public about their significance. That subject alone deserves its own hearing. Senate investigators are trying to figure out who paid Epstein for girls, and unfortunately, Secretary Bessent is involved in preventing that from happening. The bottom line in this administration is the machinery of government works to the benefit of Donald Trump before all else. That's the corrupt framework that produces insurrection slush funds, protects pedophiles, and dismisses the concerns of people who are worried about being able to make rent and to feed their families. There is an awful lot for the committee to discuss today, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to question and answers.
Thank you for convening today's hearing. I'm grateful for this opportunity to discuss President Trump's 2027 budget, which builds on this administration's progress in unleashing a new era of economic expansion.
Could you pull the microphone a little bit closer?
Sure. I last appeared before this committee just a few weeks before the Senate passed the Working Families Tax Cuts. So on the heels of the most successful filing season in IRS history, I'd be remiss if I did not begin by thanking the committee for helping to deliver this once-in-a-generation bill to the president's desk. This day, under President Trump, we celebrated how much more money hardworking Americans kept, not how much the government took. Over 62 million tax returns claimed at least one of the president's signature new tax cuts. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, deductibility of American car loan interest, and enhanced deduction for low and middle income seniors. All told, the average refund increased by over 11%, with refunds increasing by 18%. But as important as what this legislation achieved is what it prevented. If opponents of the working family tax cuts had their way, our economy would have absorbed the largest tax hike in its history, over $5 trillion. 90% of American taxpayers would have seen their standard deduction slashed, while 40 million families would have seen their child tax credit halved. Instead, this committee held the line, and the American people had a better tax day because of it. Notably, President Trump's pro-growth policies don't stop at putting more money back in the pockets of working middle-class families. They extend to placing the American dream within the closer reach of their children. For context, nearly 40% of Americans have no exposure to our great U.S. equity market, no stake in the companies they helped to build. Trump accounts represent a profound reimagining of that arrangement. They will ensure that every American child can benefit from private ownership and compound growth, that every American child, in short, is born a shareholder. To date, nearly 6 million Trump accounts have been opened, with 1.4 million eligible for the $1,000 seed contribution. Of course, as his tax cuts deliver relief for working-class Americans, President Trump's economic agenda is bolstered by two other distinct but reinforcing levers: trade and deregulation. Let me briefly address both in turn. First, the president is undeterred in his determination to open markets for U.S. goods and services while rebuilding U.S. manufacturing capacity. Over the 12 months ending March 26, the trade deficit for goods declined by approximately $370 billion compared to the same time frame ending March 2025. The economy has added 313,000 net private sector jobs and 13,000 manufacturing jobs in the past 2 months. Firm capital expenditures rose at an annual rate of over 17% in the first quarter, and companies are investing trillions to build and expand here at home. American industry is winning again to the benefit of American workers. A whole of government approach, meanwhile, is coupling our manufacturing revival with a great regulatory reset. Properly calibrated regulation is essential for economic growth, capital formation, employment, and higher wages. So at the outset of this administration, President Trump set the ambitious benchmark of slashing 10 existing regulations before issuing a single new one. In 2025, we shattered the goal with a ratio of 129-1. As a result, the regulatory actions generated more savings last year than in those of the prior Trump administration combined. Separately, any one of our initiatives on trade, tax cuts, and deregulation would be substantial. Taken together, they are transformative. Before President Trump took office, our trading partners exploited America's markets, our regulatory state smothered businesses, and our tax code was poised to punish workers and job creators. Today, his policies are driving lower taxes, bigger paychecks, and broader prosperity. So I thank you on this committee for its partnership in this critical work, and I look forward to building upon our stride through the President's budget for the year ahead. Thank you. And I had hoped to keep this in terms of the economy. Senator Wyden has mendaciously slandered the Treasury building in an attempt to cover up his son having an investment meeting with Jeffrey Epstein to ask for funding. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
let's be clear here. Nobody is interested in the ramblings of a capo in the most corrupt regime in American history. We want to get some facts about this deal. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I will ask my questions first today.
And we would like to hear what Adam Wyden and Jeffrey Epstein talked about. Your son's largest investment position was Rick's Cabaret. So did your son and Jeffrey Epstein talk about pole dancing as he begged him for money using your limited credibility?
Should I just proceed?
As we have done throughout this matter, the Department of Treasury is following the direction of the Department of Justice. And as you noted, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche testified yesterday that the government will not be moving forward with the fund. We intend to comply with that direction. I do not have any additional details into what that means at this time, but I will note that even with the Acting Attorney General Blanche's statements yesterday, this matter is still subject to ongoing litigation, so I'm unable to comment further on it. As with all department litigation, the Department of Treasury and the IRS were represented by the Justice Department, so any additional questions about the settlement or the fund should be addressed to the Justice Department and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche.
Secretary, yesterday, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche indicated that the administration is not moving forward with the slush fund, but there's been no indication of what this means for the Trump alleged IRS audit immunity. So my first question is, does the IRS audit immunity given to Trump, his family, and his businesses still stand? I'd like a yes or no answer to that.
You can ask me the question, you can't tell me how to answer it. So,
I got five minutes. I'm going to use them for these questions.
You're using up your time now, sir. As I said, I am unable to comment with ongoing litigation.
Okay. So that we understand what's at stake here, this immunity deal is the biggest scam against the taxpayer in American history. And Americans are going to pay taxes, and Trump and his clan won't. So we'll start with that. Now, my second question is, every president's tax return gets audited, Mr. Secretary. Who originated the May 19th addendum canceling Trump's audits? Was it Trump, DOJ, or Treasury?
Again, sir, as Albert Einstein said, doing the same thing and expecting a different answer is the definition of insanity.
You've given no answers on this subject, and that's why I'm going to ask these questions.
And because, as I said, there's ongoing litigation.
Does the DOJ have the authority to settle a tax dispute unilaterally?
The DOJ acts as the attorney for Treasury and the IRS.
So the tax code says the DOJ can only settle a tax dispute if you, the Treasury Secretary, first deferred the dispute to DOJ in the case we're talking about. So here, Trump, his kids, all of the business entities they own, potentially thousands of tax returns, and unless you referred every single one of those tax returns to DOJ, the addendum is invalid, or the Treasury and the IRS believe have been more involved in this scandal, as far as I can tell, than you've led us to believe. So I'm going to keep digging into the timetable here. Career IRS attorneys wrote a 25-page memo preparing defenses against Trump's lawsuit, and they recommended DOJ move to have Trump's lawsuit dismissed. The IRS reportedly gave this memo to Treasury officials in April before the settlement. Did you see that memo?
Again, there's continuing litigation, and I'm unable to answer.
Will you provide this committee with a copy of the IRS memo?
Again, there's continuing litigation.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to continue my questions, but I would like to ask you now to authorize the 6103 waiver and for Mr. Bessent to waive the attorney-client privilege, which I guess is part of what he's up to.
I will not, I'm not quite sure what you're asking, but I will not agree to ask him to waive his attorney-client privilege.
So the way we're going to get to the bottom of it is to have the committee look at these matters in a bipartisan way, and I'm just going to continue with the questions that highlight my argument. The Biden administration prosecuted Charles Littlejohn, the Booz Allen contractor who leaked Trump's tax returns. Booz Allen, which helped with the prosecution, held contracts with the Treasury Department for years. 3 days before Trump filed his lawsuit this year, you abruptly canceled all the contracts. It is hard to see that timing be a coincidence. Did you know in advance that Trump was going to file a suit against the IRS?
I did not.
All right, I've written to you twice asking for records related to this decision. Both times you refused. I'll ask again. Will you send the committee all records documenting this decision so we can review this in a bipartisan fashion?
Again, there is ongoing litigation, and Senator, how we got here was a violation of President Trump's 6103 rights. And it wasn't just President Trump. There were 400,000 tax returns that were leaked by Mr. Littlejohn. And I will point out that Mr. Littlejohn was not prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. He was eligible to be prosecuted on 3 counts. The Biden administration chose light touch and only prosecuted him on 2 counts.
Let's be absolutely clear about what Ron Wyden was trying to establish in this hearing and what Scott Borkus did to avoid answering him. Wyden laid out step by step how the President of the United States extracted from his own government a benefit no other American has ever received: permanent immunity from IRS audits for himself, his family, and his businesses. And every time Wyden asked how it happened, Bessent retreated behind the same phrase: ongoing litigation. He lays out the shape of the scandal. First, Donald Trump sued his own administration for $10 billion over a tax return leak that happened while he was president. A judge appeared ready to throw the lawsuit out, so Wade argues Trump rushed a settlement for personal gain. Part of that settlement was the $1.8 billion fund the acting Attorney General has now said won't move forward. But the other part, the part Wyden calls the biggest direct benefit to Trump, reportedly remains the cancellation of a long-running IRS dispute that let Trump off the hook for a reported $100 million in back taxes and release the entire Trump family and the Trump Organization from liability for any past tax crimes. As Wade puts it in the line that anchors the whole hearing, as of right now, everybody in America is subject to audit except the Trump family. He then dismantles the defense before it's even offered. The Senate Republican leader had called this a standard settlement, business as usual. Wade counters with the facts. 2 former IRS commissioners have confirmed the arrangement is completely without precedent. This isn't normal. It's the ultimate case of an ultra-wealthy individual living under one set of rules while everyone else lives under another. And Treasury Wyden notes was involved from beginning to end. It was a defendant and a negotiator in the lawsuit. It was told by its own IRS attorneys that Trump had no real case, and its top lawyer appears to have quit in objection to the settlement. Then he starts asking Bessent direct questions, and the pattern sets in immediately. Does the audit immunity for Trump, his family, and his businesses still stand? Yes or no? Bessent won't answer. And this is where Wyden's expertise turns a dodge into an exposure. Under the tax code, he explains, the Justice Department can only settle a tax dispute if the Treasury Secretary first refers that dispute to DOJ. Trump, his kids, and their business entities represent potentially thousands of tax returns. Unless Bessent referred every single one of those returns to DOJ, Wyden argues the addendum may be invalid, or Treasury was far more deeply involved in crafting this than Bessent is letting on. Either way, the Ask the Justice Department deflection collapses because the referral is Treasury's job, and only Bessent can say whether he did it. Wyden keeps pulling threads. Career IRS attorneys wrote a 25-page memo laying out defenses against Trump's lawsuit and recommending it be dismissed, and reportedly handed it to Treasury officials in April before the settlement. Did Bessent see it? Litigation. Will he give the committee a copy? Litigation. Wyden then raises the timing that's hardest to wave off. 3 days before Trump filed his lawsuit, Bessent abruptly cancelled all Treasury contracts with Booz Allen, the firm that had helped prosecute the contractor who leaked Trump's returns. Wyden asks if Bessent knew in advance that Trump was going to sue. But when Wyden asks for the records behind that contract cancellation records, he's requested twice in writing and been refused. It's back to ongoing litigation. The through line is a committee's top tax expert methodically building a case while the witness refuses to supply a single fact. Wyden's requests are concrete and reasonable. A yes or no on whether the immunity stands, the origin of the addendum, the IRS memo, the contract records, and a 6-1-3 waiver so the committee can examine the tax information on a bipartisan basis. You are watching David Brooke, and if you want to support that as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, and drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.